Hello and welcome back to the channel. There are moments in true crime where the headlines sound ridiculous, and this is one of them. Lori Vallow Daybell in jail facing discipline over chewing gum, M&Ms, a birthday card, and a tube of toothpaste.
All 404B is in, or do we get a hearing on what 404B can come in? If I open the door, do I get a hearing? We stop trial and I get a hearing. You don't need to yell at me either. Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very curious.
On paper, that sounds petty. But when you actually listen to this disciplinary hearing, it stops being about petty candy pretty fast. What we're watching is Lori being asked a simple question. Where did the toothpaste come from? And instead of giving a normal answer, she says she prayed for something, and it appeared. A miracle. In jail. Involving toothpaste. And I know that sounds like the setup to a joke, but this little 7-minute clip is actually extremely revealing because in this one hearing, we see a lot of the same patterns people have been analyzing in Lori Vallow Daybell for years. The magical thinking, the spiritual specialness, the refusal to give a plain answer, and the shift into childhood victim when challenged. And then, the second her own privileges are on the line, suddenly she becomes very practical, very grounded, and very concerned about her tablet, her calls, her commissary, the programs. So we're not going to do a full Lori Vallow case recap. Most of the True Crime Guardians already know the big picture. So we're just going to look at this one jail clip and asking, what does this behavior show us? Not clinically, because I'm not diagnosing her from a jail video, but behaviorally. But sometimes the smallest moments show clear patterns. This video came from East Idaho News and Courtroom Insider Nate Eaton. He reported that Lori Vallow Daybell had sent him a flash drive containing photos, videos, podcasts, recordings, and other items, and that the episode also included newly released video from Estrella Jail in Arizona, where Lori got in trouble for having contraband. At the time of this recording, Lori is back in Idaho custody. IDOC currently lists her as in custody at Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, and separately, her Idaho appeal is moving forward, with East Idaho News reporting that the Idaho Supreme Court has been assigned the case. But this video is not about that appeal. It's not a courtroom hearing. It's not a criminal trial. This is a jail disciplinary hearing. And that matters because the setting is stripped down. There is no jury, no big courtroom, no spiritual monologue, no dramatic legal argument, just a sergeant asking direct questions and Lori answering them, or trying not to, rather. Okay, let's begin.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Antiveros with the hearing unit. I'm here for DAR 25-19049, also DAR 25-19050. Do you have an ID I can see? Here's, it don't matter. Thank you. Hey, this DAR, so the first one on the 26th,
So the sergeant comes in and identifies two disciplinary reports for Lori, D2519049 and D2519050. That tells us right away, this is an administrative jail discipline. This is the facility handling alleged rule violations. And that's why I think the clip matters, because in a jail disciplinary setting, the institution does not care about your larger narrative. It cares about your conduct. Did you have the item? Were you allowed to have it? Where did it come from? Was there unauthorized contact? Was there a rule violation? And that is it. And for someone like Lori, who has historically existed inside these sweeping spiritual narratives, that kind of setting can be revealing, because the jail is not debating theology with her. The jail's just asking, where do your M&Ms come from and where did the toothpaste come from?
it seems like you were coming back from a visit when they noticed you were chewing gum. And then also they searched and you had M&Ms and a birthday card. Where did you get those from?
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's a long story, but you know, I had an interview that day.
Okay.
So the first issue is that Lori's coming back from a visit. We hear that first. They notice that she's chewing gum. Then they search her and they find M&Ms and a birthday card. And yes, if you're watching from the outside, it sounds silly. It sounds like, really, candy, a card, toothpaste? But in jail, the issue is not whether the item is cute or harmless. The issue is how it got into the jail. Contraband is not necessarily just drugs or weapons. Contraband can be anything that bypasses the rules and enters through an unauthorized channel. Because if someone can get candy or toothpaste in through an unauthorized pathway, then the facility is going to ask what else can come through that same pathway, right? That's why that matters. The M&Ms are not the point. It's just the breach that's actually making the point here.
She didn't bring a recorder, and so they're coming today. It was a joke. All that stuff. Kind of she was like, oh, this boy, he sent me a text, and this lady sent me a box with clothes and money and M&Ms in it. And then later, when I was asked if he was going to come do the interview, he was like, oh, I'm so sick. But he said the opener.
So the reporter is the one that brought.
Okay, so that's hard to explain, or sorry, it's hard to hear. She starts talking about an interview, a reporter, a box, clothes, money, M&Ms, some texts, and suddenly the original question, where did these items come from, is buried inside all of her little story. And that's a pattern for Lori. That's a pattern that is worth noticing. When someone is being direct, the answer is usually pretty simple. This person gave it to me. I found it. I didn't know I had it. I'm not answering that. But when someone's trying to soften their accountability or confuse the timeline or make the person that's listening do the work, the answer is going to be cluttered and clouded. It becomes a conversation rather than an answer. It becomes hard to pin down. And that's part of the deflection. That can be very effective on ordinary people because now you're not just listening, you're reconstructing the whole story. You're trying to help them make their answer make sense. But the sergeant does not get pulled into that too far. She cuts it down to the part that mostly matters.
Brought him to you? Okay.
So now
And this was during your legal visit then when you saw the reporter on this date?
Yeah, right before.
So the sergeant clarifies that the reporter is the one who connected the items and then asks if that happened during the visit. And this is where the institutional issue is a little more clear. If items are moving through an interview setting, a legal visit setting, or any controlled visit environment, that's exactly the kind of thing that a jail will shut down. Let's point out Lori's tone here also. She doesn't sound mortified or embarrassed. She just sounds casual, almost light. Like this is a misunderstanding that should just go smooth itself out. And maybe part of that is her personality or part of that is her strategy. But maybe part of that is the genuine detachment from the seriousness of rules that apply to everyone else except for Lori. But whatever it is, it does not read as humility. It reads like, why are we making such a big deal out of this? Why is this such a thing? And the answer is because you're in jail. That's why.
The other DAR is they searched and you had some toothpaste. Was it the same person that brought it for you? Or who brought you that?
No one brought that.
Where did you get it?
So, you won't believe me if I tell you.
Huh?
Nobody will believe me if I tell you.
What do you mean?
So, it's a long story, but I guess whatever. But all those things, like,
What do you mean you guys whatever? Where did you get it from? Did you
So now we get to the toothpaste. And this is where the clip changes a little bit because the sergeant asks if it was the same person. Lori says no. The sergeant asks, where did it come from? And this is the fork of the road, right? Because Lori could give a normal explanation. She could say someone gave it to her. She could say someone found it. She could say she doesn't remember. She could deny the whole thing. She could even refuse to answer. But instead, she starts preparing the sergeant for an answer that's going to sound unbelievable. She sounds essentially like nobody will believe me if I tell you. And that line is important because before she even gives the explanation, she's already positioning herself as misunderstood. She's not just answering a question. She's setting up a frame. And the frame is, my truth is too unusual for ordinary people to understand.
You're saying you didn't get it during your visit?
correct.
Where did it come from?
I paid for something.
You prayed for it and it showed up?
So there it is. I prayed for something. That is the line. That is the whole video. Because the second Lori answers a contraband question with prayer, she moves the conversation out of ordinary cause and effect. The sergeant is asking, where did the item come from? Lori's answer moves toward, it appeared because I prayed. And I want to be careful here. Faith is not the problem. Prayer is not the problem. Plenty of people pray. Plenty of people believe in miracles. That's not what I'm criticizing. The issue here is that a very simple accountability question is being answered through a supernatural frame. And that frame conveniently removes ordinary responsibility because if the toothpaste appeared through prayer, then no one smuggled it in. No one handed it off. No rule was broken. Lori is no longer someone caught with unauthorized property. She becomes the recipient of a miracle. That's not just weird. That is functional. It does something for her. It gives her a way out of the normal questions.
Well, I was going to show it to them because I was trying to show them that miracles do happen.
Yeah.
It was my birthday.
Yeah. Then she said she wanted to show people that miracles do happen. And that's where this goes beyond a strange excuse. Now it's self-mythology almost. Because she's not just saying, I do not know where it came from. She's not just saying, I prayed. She's presenting herself as part of a demonstration. Like she's there to reveal something spiritual to the other people. This is specialness language. It's not private faith. It's not quiet belief. That is, I am operating in a bigger spiritual story than the one you're trying to hold me accountable in. And that is the psychological heart of this whole clip, because this is the same basic shape we have seen in Lori's broader public behavior. She puts herself inside a larger story. She's not just a defendant. She's not just an inmate, not just a person being asked about rule violations. She's someone with signs, miracles, missions, revelations, special knowledge. And the danger with that kind of thinking is that it can become a shield against ordinary accountability.
She did exactly what we wanted her to do. She did this.
I can't hear you. What's that?
All those charges.
Okay.
So she adds that it was her birthday. You can hardly hear her say it, but underneath that, the framing is still very serious because now the toothpaste is not contraband. It's not a rule violation. It's not evidence of unauthorized access. It's a birthday sign. It's a spiritual moment. And that's where I think people need to separate the comedy of the item from the seriousness of her patterns. The item is ridiculous. The pattern is not. The pattern is, when confronted with a direct question, she does not stay in the world of facts. She shifts into a world of meaning. She changes the question from, how did you get this, to, why can't you understand what this means? It's a very different conversation. And it is a much harder conversation to pin down because now you're not arguing about toothpaste. You're arguing about her reality.
All those charges.
Okay. Give me a second. I'm going to explain to you. Give me a second. So for the first DAR, I am going to find you guilty of unauthorized contact or conduct with the visitor. We use progressive discipline. So I'm going to give you 7 days because it's your first DAR.
Okay, so the sergeant does not go into it with her about her miracle explanation. She brings it right back to the rule violation. She finds Lori guilty of unauthorized contact or conduct with the visitor, and this is the clash of the whole clip. Lori tries to move the conversation into a narrative. The jail moves it back into conduct. Lori moves towards a miracle. The jail moves it back towards discipline. Lori moves towards meaning, and the jail moves it back towards the consequences. And that's why this is such a clean little case study for me, because institutional settings often cut through a lot of the personal mythology that people give themselves. The jail's not there to debate whether miracles happen. The prisons aren't there to debate whether the miracles happen. The jail is there to say, you had unauthorized items. Here are the consequences.
What is today? The first. So it will go from 7:02 to 7:08. Okay, so here's your first one. There's your 7 days. And then
So for the first disciplinary report, she gets 7 days. The sergeant says they use progressive discipline. So this is being treated like a first step, a lesser sanction for a first violation. But even when you're talking about this, it's still revealing, because people who test boundaries do not always respond to small consequences with insight. Sometimes they learn the line, and sometimes they resent the line. And sometimes they start calculating how close they can get to the next time. And I'm not saying this is definitely what Lori's doing here, but the behavior is worth watching, because this is not someone who seems to be saying, I understand, I should not have done that. This is someone who seems much more focused on explaining or reframing and preserving her own version of events rather than learning a lesson.
The following DAR. What's that? Oh, I'll give you a second. Okay. 708.
Excuse me? What did you say? What did you say? Right now, you just called me stupid. I said you listen. Oh, you just called me stupid. I didn't. Okay, I need you to be quiet.
All right. So for the following one, I'm gonna find you guilty of 025 and 036. Calling you a liar.
Okay, so the sergeant moves on and finds her guilty on the second disciplinary report too. So the miracle defense did not exactly blow the doors off of this hearing, did it? And that's what makes this so clean. The institution does not indulge in the framing, and it does not argue the theology. It does not try to decode the spiritual significance of jail toothpaste. It's just saying, you're guilty, here's the discipline. And that's probably the most frustrating kind of environment for someone who wants to control the story or the narrative, because the jail does not need the story. The jail just has the rules.
So for this one, you're gonna get 15 days. The dates are listed here on the second copy. That means that your tablet, your phone's gonna be suspended to legal calls only, legal visits only. You can't order commissary other than hygiene items during that time frame. You're already on admin housing, so you only get a day room, 1 hour out of day room a day. So that'll remain the same for you. Anything else?
So now listen to what happens when the punishment becomes concrete. The sergeant explains that Lori's getting 15 days on the second disciplinary report. Her tablet and phone are restricted to legal calls only, legal visits only, no commissary except her hygiene items. She's already in admin housing, as you heard, so she still only gets 1 hour out of her room per day. And that's where I think the most revealing shift is about to happen. The mystical language fades fast once the consequences start touching her access to comfort and her routine. So she's going to become very practical, very concrete, very interested in the fine print, and the contrast matters, because a minute ago we were in miracle territory and now we're in tablet policy, and that's not nothing. That's important to Lori.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
My tablet. So they have to have it. Like I have it.
I think it's because you're pending discipline. That's why.
I know, but I'm saying, do I get that back and then it'll be.
Yeah, they should pass out your tablet. It's just gonna be a restricted profile where you only get legal calls and legal visits. Whenever they pass out tablets.
Oh, you should come back.
Yeah, you should have it.
So this is one of the most revealing sections of the clip for me. She wants to know about the tablet. When does she get it back? How does the restriction work? Will she still have legal access? And she told her that she would. She told her that she didn't have access to it previously because she was pending discipline. And that tells us something important. She comes very grounded when the consequences affect her personally. She can ask the practical questions. She can track the restrictions. She can focus on the details. So when people ask whether this is delusion, manipulation, performance, or some combination of all three, this is one of the parts I would point to, because she sounds mystical right up until the consequences become personal for her. Then suddenly she's right back on planet Earth.
Also, Ambrose, you have 415 coming. Adobo, do you still get that?
I'm sorry?
Like the free Adobo, do you still get that?
The programs?
You just the education.
I'm not. You should still. I don't know if you still get it. No, you don't get it. Okay, no. All right. Yeah, just.
Then she asks about programs, the education, and what sounds like free adobo. And I know that detail sounds small, but it's actually one of the loudest parts in the clip, because after all of this, her focus becomes, what do I still get and what do I lose? What's still going to be available to me? That's not reflection. She's trying to manage her resources. It's not an understanding of why this happened. It's, okay, what is the impact on me? And that to me is the real tell. The toothpaste is a miracle until commissary and privileges get involved. Then when we are suddenly dealing in policy, access, and amenities, everything changes.
Your legal calls, your legal visits, but regular calls will be suspended.
So to pull this apart, because I do not think this video is really about candy. I do not even think it's really about toothpaste. I think this clip shows 5 things. First, magical thinking. Again, I'm not mocking religious belief. I am talking about the way a direct question about contraband gets answered with supernatural causation. I prayed for it. It appeared. I wanted to show miracles happen. That is not an ordinary explanation. That's a reality frame. The second thing, specialness. The explanation is not just I have faith. It's this happened around me, through me, or for me, so other people could see something. That's the part that matters. The third is deflection. She does not stay with the basic question, where did it come from? The question never gets a clean, grounded answer. Instead, the answer becomes a story, then a miracle, then a misunderstanding. Then the fourth thing, grievance. When the discipline starts landing, does she perceive it? Does she use it? And the fifth is going to be situational lucidity. The second her phone, her tablet, her commissary, and her programs are affected, she becomes very practical. It shows how quickly the spiritual frame can coexist with very ordinary self-interest. And that's what makes this clip so fascinating to me. The miracle and the commissary are sitting right next to each other. I cannot tell you from this clip whether Lori literally believes the toothpaste appeared through divine intervention. I can't tell you whether she is consciously manipulating the situation. And I cannot tell you whether there is a sincere belief or a strategic dodge or some combination of both. But what I can say is the effect of the explanation is convenient. It removes a human source. It avoids a clear chain of possession. It puts Lori in a spiritually special position. And it forces the other person to either accept her frame or look like the small-minded person who does not believe in miracles. That's why this kind of answer is powerful. Not because it's believable, because it changes the battlefield. The sergeant asks a fact question. Lori answers with a belief claim. They are not the same kind of conversation. Somebody may ask me, why do you make an over 20-minute video about this? Why cover this? It's just toothpaste. It's just jail nonsense. It's just Lori being Lori. But no, small institutional moments can be very revealing in a person. When the stakes are low, people often show their habits more clearly. It's not a sentencing hearing. It's not trial testimony. There's no polished jailhouse interview. It's a disciplinary hearing where someone is being asked some boring question like, where did the toothpaste come from? And somehow, even there, we end up in a freaking miracle. That's why that matters, because the same themes keep returning over and over. She's special. She's spiritual. She deflects. She's the victim. Her personal comforts are more important than anything else, all packed into a little 7-minute clip. So no, I don't think this clip is a major legal development by itself, but I do think it's revealing, because even in a tiny jail disciplinary hearing, Lori Vallow Daybell still appears to do what we have watched for years. Avoid plain answers. Reframe ordinary conduct as spiritually significant. Position herself as misunderstood, and then immediately calculate what the consequences mean for her own access, her comfort, and her privileges. That's the story, not the M&Ms, not the gum, not even the toothpaste. The story is the frame, the way she explains herself, the way she shifts her responsibilities, the way the mystical disappears the moment commissary and tablet access enter the chat. Miracles in jail usually have a source. A staff lapse, a smuggling chain, a paper trail, an interviewer. They don't usually come in the form of Crest toothpaste. If you want more document reads, court updates, breakdowns like this, subscribe and join the True Crime Guardians. That's all I got on Lori and her miracle toothpaste for today. What do you think about this video? Am I reading too much into it? Let me know. And as always, thank you for hanging with Hio.
All 404B is in, or do we get a hearing on what 404B can come in? If I open the door, do I get a hearing? We stop trial and I get a hearing. You don't need to yell at me either. Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very curious.